How's everybody doing this fine Sunday? You guys doing good out there? I've got a bunch of stuff planned today that I think is going to be very different than some of the stuff we've done before. So I want to start by saying hold on, let me kill some of this. I did a video recently. My most recent published video was one that was sponsored by Spreadshop, where I had unboxed a bunch of the new product, including this t-shirt that I'm wearing now. They sent me a bunch of stuff, and I wanted to show everybody the quality of the kind of product that they make. Spreadshop, you know, has been a great sponsor of our live streams that we do here and a lot of tutorials that we do here. And it's really great to work with a company like that because they allow me to do things that help you guys. They don't run out and say, hey, you have to make stuff that's just about Spreadshop. We want you to, we want to sponsor these live streams like this, where you help people edit better and grow their channels faster and make better content. So they've been a fantastic partner to have here on the channel. But I did something a little sneaky that some of you caught and some of you didn't. So I put out this short video that was about 1 minute and 14 seconds long. It was pretty short. You guys catch that one? And what I did in that was I went over to my community tab post and I ran a contest around it. And I let everybody know ahead of time from my community tab, I'm going to run a contest. I'm putting out this short video. And if you guys can tell me how many different transitions and cuts I used in that video, what they are, when they happened in the video, how many they were, and what each one was. There's going to be some benefit. We're going to be giving out a $100 cash prize to the person who got it right, who was able to find them all in that video. So I usually give away like merch or something like that, but so many people, because of the pandemic, have just been struggling with, trying to afford the gear that they need. So I figured I'd do it a little different this time and say, you know what, we'll just send you the money. You spend it on whatever you want. Try to fund some of the creators out there. So listen, I want to say hi to everybody who's stopped by. Toby, nice to see you. Good to see you in here, pal. Let's see, Drone in Nature. Good to see you here too, my friend. So listen, this is what it is. I'm going to kind of show you, if you didn't have a chance to see this video, let me see if I can share that video with you so that you'll know what it was. And then we're going to break it down. It's only 1 minute and 14 seconds long, so it's not a very long video. Let me find it really quickly for you here. But what I did is I intentionally tried to create something that was a little more dramatic, a little more intense in terms of the way I approached it, so that I could show you some of the things that I think you need to think about in terms of pacing, how to use cuts, how to use transitions, things like that. So let me do this. Let me see if I can share this. And you guys tell me what you think. Give me a minute here. Let's all catch up to speed on what we're looking at, all right? This box just showed up. It's some new merch from Spreadshop, and I want to show you what their gear looks like coming out of the box. Let's do this. Let's take a look. Spreadshop has been sponsoring a lot of the live streams here on my channel, helping creators make better content and grow their own channels. So I had them send me out a couple of coffee mugs that I could use, one of their men's premium t-shirts, and a hooded sweatshirt as well. The thing I really like about the men's premium t-shirt from Spreadshop is that the material is super soft, the fit is fantastic, and the print quality is great. And I like their premium quality hoodies just as much. Again, super soft, great print quality, and the fit couldn't be better. Before I forget, Spreadshop is now making their own line of premium stickers that you can put any design onto and use it any way you want. Spreadshop, your only choice for print on demand. So that was the video. That was the video I put up. And there was a lot of little things going on in that particular video. So I wanted to see how many people could catch the things that I was doing, all right? Because what it is when I make content, it's pretty funny. I spend a lot of time watching movies. I don't know if you guys do this. When I watch movies, television commercials, it's hard for me to actually sit and enjoy them because I sit there and I analyze, like, how did they film that? When did they cut? How did they do those things that they swapped from one to another and moved over and got things to happen? How did they get the pacing right? So that's the kind of thing for me I get super hyped up about. And when I watch other people's content, I do the same thing. I'm always trying to figure out how they're making such a smooth story arc and how they're portraying the thing they want to portray. Because here on YouTube, there's a trick to learning not only how to make a great video, but how to edit it together, put it, cut out the fat, trim the fat down, and make something that people really want to watch, that's watchable and keeps people, not only gets them to click and watch the video, but once they're into it, they're like, yeah, this is cool, I like it. So what I did was I put this out here. And I said, okay, guys, on my community tab, tell me how many different transitions there are, how many, what those transitions or cuts are. It was cuts or transitions, where they happen in the video, and the first one to get it wins. Now, there was one transition I used that was I did this one in Filmora. There was one specific Filmora transition. So if you didn't use Filmora, it would be unfair. So I gave one away. And it was the Orb Twist, which was the 12th cut or transition I used in this particular video. And I told everybody, hey, I'm going to give this one away. It's an Orb Twist. Because if you, like I said, if you didn't have Filmora, you go, oh, I don't know what that is. It's some, fancy schmancy, built-in thing that I don't have in my software. So a lot of the things I try to teach creators is, like if you're, let me say Filmora, for example, if you're a Filmora or a Movavi user, a lot of these softwares have these built-in transitions that you just grab and you drag them down to your timeline and drop them in. And I think people think that's what transitions are. But there's actually, those are all built around techniques, actual video editing techniques to get your videos to do things. And I think sometimes people lean on them too much and almost turn them into crutches, like, oh, I'm just going to keep sticking all these crazy, built-in transitions and have everything twist and spin. But some of the most important transitions you can ever learn are simple things like a pan and zoom, a zoom in and a zoom out, or a dissolve. Dissolve is probably hands down the single most important transition that I use, that I think anyone should know, how to effectively use a dissolve in many different ways. And then there's a bunch of cuts, like physical cuts. When you have all that video footage, you're still trying to figure out how to make those cuts effective, so that your video has a pacing to it and a structure. And I think sometimes people let things go on far too long and they don't trim the fat, or they'll do really jerky, jumpy kind of cuts that are so crazy it's distracting. So trying to create that pace, that pace to how the video goes is super important. So listen, I'm going to do this. Let me share this. This is my actual project. Okay. So this is the project for that video that I dropped. It's 1 minute and 14 seconds long. There's a lot of stuff going down underneath in the audio because I took this stuff. I'll stay right off the bat. A lot of people, before we jump right into the cuts, there was a song that I found that I thought was a cool song, but the song itself was this really long song that didn't do what I wanted. I needed to have it do certain things in certain areas. And I had to make sure it did that effectively for my mix. So these tracks you're seeing down here are just me taking that song, slicing it up. This is one, all these down here are me taking that song and slicing it into something I wanted. The original song was the one that I was playing right when I started this live stream today, and this is the basic song. Kind of cool, right? I like the guitar riff. And then it went on to become, this big rock thing that happened and kept going. But the intro I liked a lot, but I wanted it to open up more. So I actually took the song itself and brought it into Reaper and added a filter to it so that I could get it, instead of just being that guitar riff, I wanted it to kind of have a filter that changed the sweep of it. And then have it pause right before it dropped in. So my change actually sounded like this. and then it faded down, and I repeated some of the stuff at the end. So that was just simple. When we talk about editing, I don't just edit, the video. I edit the audio. I'm always still trying to figure out ways to make things better, how to improve upon them. I don't just take a song and stick it under my video. I'm always figuring out ways like, how can I help it drive the story? So things like that. You've seen me cover a lot of audio effects, doing more sort of cinematic things. I've got a couple of videos up recently where I really broke down using Reaper and trying to take the audio and take it to a new level. We'll cover some more of that in the future. But today I really want to talk about the video sections. So dead giveaway here. There were a total, and questionable, there were a total of 19 transitions and cuts, okay? Now, cuts are anytime you take one piece of footage and either cut it, into some other piece of footage, or you cut it into itself later on in that footage, okay? Because there's different types of cuts. Taking two pieces of footage and cutting them together, putting a splice and then going to something else is what we call a standard cut. Taking a piece of footage that's very long, like if I was sitting here talking and I was trying to just take the most important lines and put them all together, or speed up, what I was saying to get it to move faster by cutting out the pauses, those are called jump cuts, right? Because you're jumping ahead in the same piece of footage, cut to another section. So simple jump cuts, standard cuts, dissolves are super important. So let me see. Let me do this, guys. Let me pull this up. I'm going to open up this screen full. Let me go full screen. The very beginning of this video. Watch here. Let's start this. Tell me if you can see what's happening. Did anyone see what happened there? In the chat, guys, what did you think that was? From the very beginning, I'll tell you, that's the very first transition that I used. Any guesses? Drop down in the chat what you think that was. Because I had a lot of guesses from people that it was funny. I was hearing people say things that were close, but not exactly. Right, okay, so let me do this. Let me go over here. We've got Eliza said, Eliza said it's a dissolve. I actually did use a dissolve transition to make that happen. This is, let me see, dissolve in, that's correct. A fade or a fade in is absolutely true. That's what we call a fade from black, or a fade in. Or this one here was, Crowbar said fade out of black. There's really two ways to do this. You can either, if you look at my actual footage here, you'll see that let me just pull that out of here so it's not in your way. Can you see down in the timeline right there, that very first, that's a dissolve right down here in the lower left. And what it does is when you put a dissolve in Filmora, if you put a dissolve at the beginning of your piece of footage, it will dissolve from nothing because it has nothing before it. So it creates a fade from black. So you're fading in from black and it creates that look. That was the very first one. This is, and a lot of people say this, fade to black. Now, that's Scarboy. That's, if I put that at the end of a piece of footage where you were watching it and then it went to black, that would be the same application, but in a different usage. It's fade to black when you put it at the end, all right? So when we're coming in is fade from black, fade in, or a dissolve in. And when you're going at the end of your piece of footage, it's a fade to black because you're going from your footage to black, or a fade out or a dissolve out. So when I was scoring all the people who took guesses, anyone who had anything like that really nailed it, who said fade in or dissolve in, fade from black, I gave them a point. All right. So that was the very first one we saw. Does that make sense? Can we fade? Here's a great question. Can we fade out of white? You mean fade in from white? Yes, you can. If you wanted to fade in from white, there's a different way to do that. And what you would do, let me go full screen, is to grab a sample color. That's what these sample colors in Filmora. You can do this with anything, but any software you have, just bring a color down, put it in a track above your main footage. I like the length of that fade, so I'm going to put the white above here. See how this is white? If I moved that dissolve up here and put it into this, what would happen is see this dissolve right now is dissolving. I've got it here. So it's dissolving out from this white into the footage. So here's the white. If I did that, you see what just happened right there? All I did was I just put the white on top. I created that fade, and now I'm fading from white. So it's a fade in from white. That's a great question, by the way. And I do that a lot. I do a lot of these things where I'll like, like put colors up there and fade in from them. And it's a cool technique because I think sometimes just starting a video can be a little abrupt. And I like when they fade in a little, or they come in from black, or they come from white, and it allows it to sort of just quickly come in. So it sets the stage. And I always think on YouTube, especially, like right when you start a video, I always I like to have a slight pause. You know, I don't like the talking to start right away, because sometimes what happens is if the player is loading, it can glitch and you miss the very beginning of the first word. So a lot of times if you look down on this section down here, if you can see this track, I didn't start, this track that I have highlighted, I didn't start talking, or the music and stuff started talking. It was talking here. I have to remember what I did. It didn't start till like maybe a half a second or so in, right about here, if you can see that, because I wanted it to have a second to breathe, fade in, and you start hearing me talk before it actually happens. And another thing I did here in this piece of footage, I was trying to think about how to do this, and instead of just doing a static shot, if you look, let me delete so you can see what I'll get rid of the dissolve. I actually took the box and threw it onto the table. That was something I was really thinking about. I didn't want to just fade in with a box sitting there. So I'm always thinking dynamically when I'm filming what I'm going to do with the pieces later on. So just filming stuff and then hoping somehow it magically comes together in the edit is usually a recipe for disaster. Like I thought about everything I wanted to do. I'm like, I know, I'll come in with the box, I'll fade in, I'll throw the box onto the table and then jump onto it and talk into the microphone. Okay. So that was the very beginning. That was the beginning, right? Thinking about throwing it. So when I was filming, before I was ever editing, I knew I had to get that box and throw it and somehow get it to land kind of in the middle of the shot. A couple of times I threw it, it like slid across the table. I'm like, no, that's not going to work. So there's a lot of that, like trying to figure out how to get that shot set up. A recipe for the ordinary. Yeah, absolutely. No kidding. Is there any way to do 3D text? It looks like it is actually in there. No, there's not. There's not. Unfortunately, not in Filmora. It doesn't have 3D text. Try panzoid.com. You can make all kinds of 3D text and then import it. I'm just looking at some of the questions here. When you're creating your videos, do you think about the pacing even when you're recording? 100%. That's a great question, John. I do, because just like I said there, when I showed you that I was throwing that box, I'm like, all right, I got to get these. I almost make like a list of all the, and it's a physical shot list of, some people call it a cut list. Like these are the shots I need. And then I try to get them all, and then I bring them all. Once I feel like I've got them in camera, then I bring them in and I start editing them together. So I'll film, I probably had 5-6 versions of me throwing that box and saying that line until I felt like I got, until I felt like I got something that really made sense, you know, that did the thing that I needed it to do. And then I picked from the best ones of whatever I had. Do you have a Stream Deck? I do have Stream Deck. I'm not using it currently, but I do have a Stream Deck. They're great to use with live streaming. So let's move forward here. So that was the first one, okay? That's number one, was the fade in, dissolve in. Let's move forward a little more. Now, as this thing started playing, let me go full screen again. You'll see that I did something very intentional with this box. Watch what I did. So I'm holding the box, I mentioned what's gear, and watch what I did here. Did you see that? Who knows what that was? In the chat, guys, tell me what you think you just saw me do in the chat. All right. And let me see what kind of guesses you got. Who won? Don't worry, I'll be announcing the winner. We're gonna go through all of these and I'll show you who, and at the end of this, we'll talk about who guessed what. There's a couple honorable mentions in here because people had some good guesses. So what do you think you saw? Zoom in. So Toby said that's a zoom in, zoom out. Very smart, Toby. That was a zoom in, zoom out. Spin, pan, and zoom I saw here too. Let me see. There's another zoom in, zoom out from Crowbar. That is a zoom in, zoom out. Zoom in, zoom out. Success is the goal, right on top of that. Let's see what else we got. Pan and zoom, close. I think this is it's a pan and zoom. That's correct. I did pan in towards the box because the box was a little bit to the right. So when you look at this, let me see if I can show you. I zoomed in. It does have a slight pan, but it's fairly centered. Here's the tricky one. Now, here's a really tricky one. What I did here was I actually layered, it's a zoom in and a zoom out. It's as simple as that. I think a lot of people thought there was something fancy going on here, like I spun the box towards the camera. I didn't, I just spun it on the table. But after I went into the edit, I knew I was gonna spin it, and then I was gonna try to cut back to me opening the box. So I wanted to zoom in during the spin and then zoom back out from another section, which was actually it's actually a bit of a jump cut in there to a forward section. And if you look, you can see I zoom in, right, as it's spinning. And if you look right down in this timeline, there's a few cuts here. Let me make this bigger. Let me see if I can show you. There is this section right here is the zoom in. That's where I was spinning the box. So I split this chunk of footage where I started to spin the box, and I applied, and see if it'll show me here, a crop and zoom. And if I open the crop and zoom, see this? This is the actual, so the guess of it being a pan and zoom in is actually correct because it not only zoomed in, but as it zoomed in, I went a little to the right. So not only is it zooming in, it's going to a pan because as I moved forward, I wanted to get the right section of the box that looked just like cardboard. So technically, I took anyone who answered this was a pan and zoom, or a zoom in, zoom out. I kind of gave you credit for that, but you had to get both ends of it because not only did it zoom into the box, but then I had another chunk of footage here. You see this cut? That's a completely different scene where I just zoom out. I'm zooming back out. So that's how I created that. I spun the box, cut forward to another section where the box wasn't moving anymore, and I just used those two sections. The first one I zoomed in with a little bit of a pan, and then I grabbed the box starting at the zoomed in point and pulled out. So that was actually the second cut right there. The third cut, nobody got. Nobody who guessed got this one. So this puts us in a position where today I'm probably going to award the prize for this particular challenge to the person who got the most amount of these right, all right? And I was really picky with everybody. I put really even standards where I said, listen, you really can't just be kind of close because then what if someone is dead on and someone's kind of close, like who's the real winner? So I went with, I was really strict with everybody. Like if you didn't nail it and tell me what you were looking at, in what time it was and how many cuts there were, then I would remove those answers and say, nah, you didn't get it. You had to tell me exactly what it was. But here's a cool one. This is what I did. See that box just sitting on the table? Let me make this full screen again. See how it's just sitting on the table? Here's one that everyone missed. It's just a standard jump cut. I jumped from this piece of footage of the box sitting there and I jumped forward. So if you would call this a standard or a jump, I would have given it to you, but nobody got it. It went from that box sitting there to jumping to where my hands are on it. See the jump? That's one frame. Now, that was a super tricky one. I'm not going to argue. When this is going by so fast, a lot of you were really smart. You opened up the video player and you just slowed down the footage, right? And you started watching it super slow to try to catch every nuance, right? I do this all the time myself. Like if I see something that looks incredible, I go right in and I slow the video playback way down and I try to figure out what that person did. So this was one that was very tricky to see. Very tricky to see. Standard or jump cut. So that was number 3. Number 2 was the zoom in, zoom out. Number 3 was that standard cut. Jump cut would have, you said, Kid Cash said, I would have said jump cut. Yep. That one right there technically was a jump cut. Nobody got it. That's okay. So so don't feel like anyone who didn't get that one is out of the race because nobody got it. And it was tricky. It was a really tricky one. All right. Okay, now this next section, let me show you this. This next section here is, do you see all these little cuts? Can you see all these? Let me make it bigger so that we can make sure everyone can see it on screen. I'll stretch this out. I will move this forward a little bit in the timeline. Let me get it over here. Oops, sorry, I don't want to grab all that. I want to grab this. My mouse has just not been working for me lately. So see all of these cuts, this one. Then this one. See these pieces I'm highlighting? This one, this one, this one, this one. This is all one piece of continuous footage where right here, I started opening the box. So this is technically the first. I opened the box, and then right here, you see that? It goes from the box being open to I'm pulling something out of it. And then when I go from this one forward, I pulled out the piece of packing paper that told me what was in it. Then do you see what happened here? The packing paper's in my hand, but the very next frame, the paper's on the ground and my hand's already in the box pulling something else out. Can you guys tell me what that is? You guys know what that one is? Who knows that cut? Because there's a bunch of them here. It's the same cut recurring over and over on that same piece of footage. Who's got it? Alton, the Dogfather Barbecue. That is a jump cut. That is 100% correct. Super fast. These are, that's a jump cut. Who else got it? Nailed it. You did nail it. Jump cut, you got it. Perfect. Jump cut, Olivia. That is a really important cut if you're a YouTube content creator. So if you're filming yourself talking like I am, now I'm live streaming right now, but if you were filming yourself talking and you wanted to really pick up the pace, make something seem like it's happening faster than it happened in real time when you were filming it. Or in this case, I was unpacking a box and I really wanted it to make it seem like time was flying by, but it's one continuous shot. The trick to a jump cut is you're not typically jumping to another piece of something else you filmed. That would be a standard cut, even though that can be a montage. But a jump cut is usually when you have one long piece of footage and you slice it up so it keeps jumping forward to events that are happening during that piece of footage. You jump forward, and it keeps jumping forward, taking out sections of like, not wasted time, but it's just stuff to make it feel like things are happening more quickly. So it speeds up time, all right? Does that make sense? So all of these things in here, when I was doing this, all it was doing was jumping from that piece. If you see here, now I'm pulling out the sticker package, which is in my hand. That's this piece of footage here, right? Oh, hold on a second. Let me pull this off the screen so you can see. So then from that sticker package, I'm holding it, and then boom, all of a sudden the sticker package isn't there, and I'm pulling a shirt out. And then when I hold that shirt up here, I just barely got that thing to say spread shop on screen, and then boom, I jumped right to me reaching in and grabbing one of the coffee mugs out. That was the technique of jump cutting. Jump, 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 jump. Super, super important technique to know. If you're trying to make something feel like it's going by more quickly, if you're trying to tighten up your edit and you want to if you're speaking and you want to take out some of the lines that you might have been sitting there wasting a little time and jump to the next important line that you were trying to say, jump cuts, all right? There was actually a total of 8 separate jump cuts. So the very first thing that happened, again, we were trying to figure out what transitions and cuts, because I think those two things work so importantly together, are happening in this one. The first one was a dissolve in. Second one was a zoom in, zoom out. The third one that no one got was just a standard cut or a jump cut. And then the next 8, which brought us to 11 different things happening, were all jump cuts. Every one of them was just jump cut, jump cut, jump cut. And as I move forward, you can see these are all jump cuts. It's the same box. It's the same unboxing. That same unboxing. And then I pushed everything aside. These were all jump cuts here. Now, once I had everything out, I jump cut over to here, and there's this thing that happened. I zoomed in. This wasn't a transition. I just zoomed in. So understanding the difference between cuts and transitions, the reason there is a slice right here in my footage is the way that Filmora works. You have to actually put a slice in the footage if you're going to add that defines the zoom, right? So I had to put a slice there. It's one continuous piece of footage, but all I did was I wanted to add a zoom and then stay there. So I had to put a slice between those two pieces of footage to do it. That's just how Filmora works. Different softwares will work differently. So this is the kind of thing that don't let the amount of cuts throw you. If you see a splice, that doesn't mean there was an actual cut there. As you can see in the footage, nothing changed. It was just me leaning in. I zoomed in. So that actually wasn't a cut in terms of changing the footage. It was just doing a zoom in. So that wasn't actually a transition and or cut. But here's where this is the one I gave away. This one here is the Orb Twist. See how it takes this piece of footage and spins it like a circle? It's almost like someone spun it around in a big circle right there. And that's a built-in effect that comes with Filmora called an Orb Twist. And the Orb Twist, what I did was I gave that one away. On my community tab, I actually said, listen, you tell me how many cuts and transitions there are, tell me what they are, tell me when they happened, and I'll give away this one, because if you're not using Filmora, it's not fair. Like, how would you know what that transition was? Like, what is that, right? So it's an Orb Twist that's native to Filmora, and I gave that one away. So nobody had to really guess that one. That was a giveaway. Success. Is it Orb 4? I don't even know. Let's see. It may have been. I always forget how to find the prop. Does it show us up here? It just says transition. I always forget. It's I can't remember if it tells us. It was one of the Orb ones. It does go up and to the right. Let's see if you were right there. That's a good question. Let me find the Orb Twist under the included, and it's the one that goes. It is in fact. You see the look of it. Hold on a second. Let me share this. It is in fact. You are absolutely right. Success is the goal. It went up and to the right. Just circled this way. And if you look, Orb Twist 4, I didn't tell anyone it was Orb Twist 4, so Success is the Goal actually knew that not only, and it was a giveaway, but he actually went ahead and said, not only is it an Orb Twist, Daniel, that's Orb Twist 4 from Filmora 10. I was like, that's pretty smart. You caught it. You are onto me. Orb 2, close, Kid Cash, and because they're all similar, and I didn't care. I mean, if anyone just put in Orb Twist, I gave that one away. It was just an orb. It's a spinning twist that's built in. So that got us through, or the Orb Twist was the 12th in a series of 19 different transitions and cuts. So we're getting pretty close here. We're getting pretty close, right? So when we're let me see this. Let me pull this up. So here's the next shot. This is an interesting one. This is a really interesting one. All I did here was a piece of footage I filmed outside from the Orb Twist. And all I did was I zoomed in here. This was just a zoom. It was just a zoom in. And this is the next one, a zoom out. You see that? All I did was see the black of the cup. All I did was I focused on the black and I went, I know, I'll zoom into the black of the cup. And then I'll start my next scene zooming out from Filmora, but I focused on the black spot in the upper left from my live stream. So there was this black spot here. This was from a previous live stream. So I did that. I went into black on one shot, zoomed in, did a standard cut, and then zoomed back out from a black region of another piece of footage. That's a really common trick, all right? That's a really common trick. Is just take your crop and zoom into one area of one piece of footage, and then go right to another one and zoom back out. Some of you guys might remember I showed how to do that it was the eyeball transition, where I had done one where I just took a shot of me talking, and then I went outside, and I was walking around on the street. And all I did was I make sure my eyes were wide open and I was looking at the camera, and I zoomed into the black portion, the very pupil of my eye. And then I took the piece of footage from outside, started from the very black portion of my eye, and zoomed back out. And what it did is it looked like the camera came into my eye, like an eyeball transition, came back out, and suddenly I was in a completely different location. Something had completely changed. Very simple trick that isn't a built-in transition. That you're creating your own transition with your video editing software. And almost every single video editing software out there that exists, no matter what you own, has some sort of zoom in, zoom out. And using that to create your own custom transitions, super, super important to learn. Because I think sometimes people just want to grab a transition and bring it down and go, if it's not a pre-built one, I don't know what that is. So learning, there was only one pre-built transition that I really used in here that was Filmora specific. It was that Orb Twist. Everything else was simple dissolve, zoom in, zoom out, standard cuts, jump cuts, but I combined some of them in certain ways. But that was a real easy one. Found a black spot on one piece of footage from a mug that was outside, and then I wanted to jump over to a live stream that I had done, a recording of some live streams that I'd done previously, and then I just grabbed the black section of that and zoom back out. So your eye goes, I see the black, and I see the black coming out, but oh, wait a minute, this is completely different. Something's changed. So leveraging that kind of stuff, really, really, really super important to think about when you're creating your own stuff, because you might go, a lot of people start stacking all these crazy transitions and it makes this thing feel too jumpy. So I like really simple zoom in, zoom out flips, or just a simple cut or a simple dissolve to something else. Really, really important. So let me see if any of these questions are important. How do you zoom in or out the background without the object? Only the background should be zoomed. That's a thing called a dolly zoom. I have, or a parallax effect. I've got a video on that. Look up on my channel, parallax effect or dolly zoom, and it'll explain it. It's a trick. You have to film it the right way first. Because if you don't know how to film it right first, you won't be able to create that effect. Even Orb 4 was too much. Yeah, I don't disagree. I think Orb 4, I put it in there and I was like, I just wanted to, let people know I'm going to give you one. And this is what this, so you don't feel left out. I agree with you there. Totally. Akshay, some like the Orb Twist ones, they just feel so aggressive that I use them sometimes, but most of the time they just feel too over the top. They don't feel natural. It's not the kind of transition you would see in most commercials or in most movies or most media that we see. So if you start leaning on those a lot, it can actually hurt your production value because it gets real janky. Loving the dolly fade at the moment. Yeah, it's a really cool thing to do. The dolly zoom itself is a super important one. And again, I'll talk about that maybe in the future, but I have 2 videos on it, parallax and dolly, that show how to do that thing. Very cool. Jump cut is one of the easiest and most important thing in video editing. No doubt. You said a mouthful there, Eliza. I hope it's Eliza. So those things are very important, learning those cuts and learning those transitions. Let's jump back over here. Let me show you where we're at. So we were at here where I had done that simple zoom into the mug, to the black, and then I zoomed back out of the black of this piece of footage where I was just showing a recent live stream and saying that, Spreadshop had sponsored this piece of content in some of our previous live streams. That's my disclaimer down there, letting people know that this is sponsored content. When I got to this next section, guess what this one is, guys? This is one that I don't know that anyone got this right. I think someone came close, but I have the list up here. You guys tell me, what do you see here? Let me make this big. Now knowing what you know, what do you see happening here? Okay, there's live footage. What do you see happening? And then what do you see happening here? What is this one? Put it in the chat. What do you see happening right there? This is one that we've already used in here. It's a very simple technique. It's very similar to the other thing we just did. Any hints here? Drop it in the chat if you know what you're looking at. It's just a very simple, went from the black in the upper corner, and then I came back out from the black inside of the cup. I'm going to give a few answers here. Dogfather says pan and zoom. It is a pan and zoom. The real trick here is it's a zoom in with a zoom out. Okay. Now it does have a slight pan and there is a jump cut in between or a standard cut because it's not jumping to another piece of the same footage. So it's just, we technically call that a standard cut, but it's a zoom in, zoom out transition. You zoom into one portion of your footage, you zoom back out of another piece of footage, putting a standard cut in between. So anybody who got that pretty close, I gave them the point for that. Because like pan and zoom, then cut, right? But there's 2 pieces. You have to understand it's a zoom in and then a zoom out, right? Super important, super important. Neil, missed last month's members because of picture. Neil, you're always welcome in the group. You know that, pal. You don't have to worry about that kind of stuff, but I appreciate the super chat. Let's see. So that's what it was, in and out, right? And there he is. Neil's back in. It's like, we're like the mafia, Neil. You can never leave. They'll just drag you. Once you're out, they drag you back in. So this is what did Akshay said, pan and zoom to black and zoom down to black. You're right. That's exactly what I did. I used it, but it could have been anything. In this case, I did use the black of the mug. And then, so I zoomed into the black of the upper left, cut to another piece of footage of this mug and started zoomed in at the black of the mug and moved back out. So it gave it that effect as if I was going from one piece of black. Your eyeball says, yeah, we're zooming into black. And when it zooms out, you're like, holy crap, we're at a different place now. How'd we get there? Can it be called a cross zoom? You call it whatever you want. But the thing I really want you to understand here, Aritro, is to understand the concepts of these transitions. It's a zoom in and it's a zoom out. Zoom in on one piece of footage, boom, you're doing a standard cut, and then you're going to another piece of footage, starting zoomed in, and then doing the opposite, coming back out. So it's that in-out motion is what makes it feel like a transition, right? And it's not, it's just cuts and it's crop and zoom. So it makes it feel like things are, like more is happening than really is. And I probably overuse this a little bit, but you know, that happens sometimes. Sometimes I go a little heavy on these, but I wanted to show you, how to do these things and how to do them effectively, because there's a lot in here. In this 1 minute and 14 second piece of footage, which just kind of moved quickly through, there are 19 different cuts, right? So that just shows you how you can keep things moving. I always try to keep the pace of my content moving and flowing to keep it visually stimulating. Especially if you're doing something short, you really want it to bang out quickly. You see that a lot in commercials. You'll see commercials do really fast jumps, boom, move quickly, because they're trying to get a lot happening in that short period of time to catch your eye and keep you watching. So some of these shorter things we do when we're doing video edits, you know, you're trying to create that story, but you're really trying to move it quickly through. All right, let me move on to the next one. So that last one was the, let me go over here. That last one we had was another zoom in, zoom out. So we had two zoom in, zoom out in a row, right? Okay, let's jump over to here. Let me see if you can tell me what's happening here. I'm gonna go full screen at this point. Tell me what you see happening. Let me get rid of, hold on one second. Let me get this out of here. Let me go full screen. Tell me what you think this was a funny one. A lot of people said that this was a motion tracking. I got motion tracking. People said this is just a pan. I panned from what I was seeing over here on the left, this white cup, over to the black cup. And I got all these answers about motion tracking. And I guess I should stay here for 1 second. Motion tracking is when you have a piece of footage. Say the footage is moving. Something in the footage might be moving, like a car driving by. And you want to put like maybe some text that says, car number 1. And as the car moves, you want the text to track the motion of that car. That's motion tracking. When a second element follows a first element, okay? It's usually two different pieces of footage or an overlay. Motion tracking is like when you want words to follow, or if you put a blur on your face and you want that blur to follow your face around as you move, that would be motion tracking, because it is tracking the motion of something in the first piece of video footage from the second piece of footage is tracking something that's in the first, right? Motion tracking that motion. This was just a simple pan. And I did get a lot of guesses of motion tracking, and that kind of made me wonder, like, this is why I think I get a lot of questions on the channel, like, how do you do this motion tracking? And people might just mean they just need a simple pan. They just want to know how to do this. That's all that is. I just panned from that mug to this mug. Okay, so that's not even a cut. That's not even a transition. Just a simple pan during my footage. Now here comes the next one. Tell me what you see. What's happening here? What was that? Tell me what you saw here. In the chat, tell me what you just saw between this and this. Give me some guesses down in the chat. I want to see what you guys think that was. And that can be a little tricky. This is one of those ones because I think a lot of times what happens is people, they think that there's only one thing that you can do at any given time, right? So they say, this is what this is. Akshay says it's a fade. You get a half a point for that, because this is the most common technique used in film other than a standard cut. And it actually is exactly what Refrag said. It's a dissolve. When you have one piece of footage and another piece of footage, and you want one to sort of fade out as the other one fades in, that's a dissolve. If you use, when we talk about fades, fading in is typically the beginning of a piece of footage where you fade in from nothing or fading out to nothing. That's a fade, usually when you fade out. Now, there are such things as some people call them crossfades. So if you're going to call it a fade, then you would call it a crossfade. It means one thing goes out when another thing comes in. But the standard language here is dissolve. And one of the reasons you want to know this, if any of you guys are aspiring video editors that want to get paid to make content, knowing these terms is important. So if a client says, I'd like that to dissolve from here to here, you need to make sure that you go, yeah, no, it's no problem. I know how to do, I can do a dissolve. I know what that is, right? Or even if you're talking to any other video editors, or you're trying to talk to your own client and say, what if we did a dissolve from the mug to the shirt? What do you think about that, right? That you have to be able to explain what a dissolve is. It's when one thing slowly disappears and one thing simultaneously starts to appear. That's the dissolve, right? So that's what you try. That's what you're really trying to make happen. Zakaria, Muhammad, absolutely. That was a dissolve. So did I make a cut? Yeah, there's a cut in between. Anytime you dissolve in between two. So in that particular one, if someone had answered, it was a dissolve and a standard cut, I would have said, yep, that's, you totally nailed it. So anytime we're going from one piece of footage to another, there's a cut in there. The overlay is the dissolve. So anytime you use a dissolve, it implies that there's a cut between them, right? If you use a fade, that means you're probably implying there wasn't a cut. You're coming in from nothing. And if you're fading out, motorcycles are out today. I love it. If you're fading out, that implies you're fading to nothing. If you're talking about a dissolve, it implies there's two pieces right there and that you're going to go from one slowly or quickly to the other, which in this case is exactly what I did. This was a very fast dissolve. You see the time of it? It went right from this piece right into this one and shot over, and then another pan. This is yet another pan. I went pan and I did this pan in camera. Here's an interesting thing. Both of these pans were done in camera. And that's a funny thing because I think a lot of times people think, oh, well, how did you do that in Filmora? I actually had my camera on a monopod and I aimed it at that mug and then flipped it over to this one quickly. That was all done in camera. So this was not done in the editing software. And then when I dissolved over to this is an in-camera shot, the same monopod, aimed it at the t-shirt and then swapped it over to the hoodie. So that's a great example of something that's done in camera, not in the edit. I had it up on, so the monopod is like a tripod with one leg. So it's got a rubber foot and I can pivot the camera around. So I was able to, point it at one, swing it over to the other. And then I had those cuts. I knew I wanted to cover. I wanted to show the two mugs. I wanted to show the t-shirt and the hoodie. So that was an in camera. And all I did was dissolve between them. So everybody who got dissolve right, pat yourself on the back. That was another simple technique that can look super cool, right? I took the monopod motion of two different pieces of footage and just put a dissolve between them. And all of a sudden it felt like there was all this stuff going on. People were thinking there was motion tracking and it wasn't. It was just a simple dissolve. Let me see. How much I'm not really doing Filmora questions today. All of those answers are on my channel and you can look them all up on Filmora export settings. Camera made effects are amazing. Yes, which is going to bring us towards some of the next things coming up. I totally agree. I think people sometimes forget that the effects that you can do in your own camera, right? That you don't even have to set things up in your camera before you ever edit can be huge. Here, let me show you this one. So that got us to, let me just double check. We were at number, I got to check which number we were at there. I'll pull it back up again. Hold on one second. So that one, that slight dissolve there was the 15th one. That was the 15th cut and or transition that I used in this, which means we have four more. All right. You with me still out there? How are we holding on? The next one, and here we go. Beanie's already got ahead of me on some of the things I did in here. I don't know if let me see the very next one. This was a dissolve, but I put my hand in front of the lens. Okay, this is one that I think a lot of people, I gave like half points here. It was confusing because this is one I intentionally tried to trick you. I dissolved from this piece of footage. Let me get this bigger so you can see everything. I dissolved from this hoodie. It was just a shot of the hoodie. And the next shot was a shot of me with my hand over the lens, pulling my hand back, and then starting to talk. So that all that really happened here was two pieces of footage that I dissolved between. I went from that hoodie shot, and I dissolved over to this one where I'd had my hand over the lens and pulled it back. Now some people said, oh, that's a hand transition, or that's a, some people said, oh, I saw the footage blur. You added a blur to that. I didn't. The reason I put my hand up was to get the lens, my camera, to autofocus on my hand, pull it back. So now it was out of focus, and it took it a second to catch back up to focusing on me. That was an in-camera effect, exactly what we were talking about. The only thing I did in this edit was a dissolve between those two pieces of footage. So it was me, it was the hoodie, and then me starting like this. So if I head my hand up and see how it's now focusing on my hand, when I pull it back, it takes a second for the camera autofocus to catch up and go, oh, there's Daniel again. So that was an in-camera effect. So it wasn't anything I did. The only thing I did was a dissolve. So the correct answer for this one, it was just a dissolve. I did put my hand up, but a lot of people thought that was a hand transition. And that was not a bad guess. I wanted to give points for that, but I couldn't. Hey, Michael, how you doing, pal? Good to see you too. So this was closer here, cross dissolve and camera focus. Actually, you were absolutely right. It was a dissolve from one piece, just a dissolve, and the camera focus did it itself. So the only thing I actually added for a cut, standard cut with it is, like we said, when we say dissolve, we assume there's a cut in the middle because you have to dissolve from something to something. That's the definition of a dissolve. So when I put that dissolve in, I just chose very carefully to do one with my hand up against the lens so I could get that blur effect. But so that one was one, it was tough. I had to give a lot of people, no points for that because they were like, oh, it's a hand transition. Here's why I couldn't give points for that one. All right. Let me move forward. Let me move forward to the next one. We're getting close to the end here. On the next piece of footage, now the one I showed my shirt, pointed to my shirt, talked about my shirt, and then I did something that is pretty commonly known, is I did an actual hand transition. I put my hand up to the camera, I cut, just a standard cut, to another piece of footage where I started with my hand on the camera and pulled away. But do you see what it did? In this piece of footage, I'm wearing a t-shirt right here. T-shirt, next piece of footage, I'm wearing the hoodie. All I did was I put my hand up to the camera. So if you see my hand go up and it starts to blur a bit, that's just the camera. That's not me adding any blur. And I cut right between those two. And if you look at the actual project, I actually sped up this. So if you see why there's an extra spot here, it's because I wanted the pullback to be a little bit, the hand to the camera to be a little faster. So I sped it up. I was a little slow getting my hand to the camera. So I actually sped it up. But if you look, there is no dissolve. There is no anything. It's just straight me putting my hand up to the camera, and it's just a standard cut to a completely different piece of footage where I changed clothes and I started talking about the hoodie. All of that blur, again, is just from my hand, the camera being focused on my hand. So I get that sped up, zoom back in. And that's what that was. That I gave credit to anyone who called that a standard cut, because that's what it was, or a hand transition. So there was two things going on there, right? I was using my hand to create that transition, and I used a standard cut in between. So hand up and then hand away with a cut in between. I did speed up a little portion of it to make it go faster. That's all that is. Simple transitions like that, putting your hand up and then pulling away, it makes it look like, wow, he just put his hand up to the camera and all of a sudden he was like in a different set of clothing. And it's simple little tricks like that that can really take your editing to the next level. It can really make things look super cool, super exciting, and really change the way things happen. So that was number 17, a hand to lens cut there. It was a hand transition, or it was a standard cut. Anyone who put either one, you got the point because you totally saw it, right? Don't you see what we're doing here? Are these making sense? Tell me in the chat. Are any of these I'm talking about not making sense? Am I moving so fast that some of these don't make sense to you? Let me know. Say if it's all making sense, just say yes, give me a yes. If you're having trouble following along, tell me no, and I'll see if I can review anything that I might have gone too quickly over. But I'm trying to really get you to understand this flow of how to use things that if you notice, there's very few transitions that I'm bringing down. Right? It's there. A lot of these things here are just things that are that are just cuts and me zooming in, zooming out, or doing something in camera. I think people sometimes get all wrapped up. The reason I wanted to cover this, they get wrapped up in like, I need Adobe, I need DaVinci, I need, Final Cut Pro, because they think there's all these functions and features that are missing that will make their edits look better. And I'm trying to help people understand most of the time, it's not about these magical features. They're simple features. It's understanding how to set up your shot, how to do things in camera, how to put things together, how to utilize how your camera will act, when it will blur, how it will focus, how to get certain shots, certain lighting, how to just speed up a piece of footage or slow it down to get it to do what you want. And you can have really cool looking edits that really aren't using a lot of advanced features. Simple editing technique. Technique over tool is something that I've really tried to impress upon people. Like sometimes I'll show a technique in Movavi and people go, well, how do I do it in Filmora? Same way. It's a technique, right? Whether if I show you how to do something that used keyframing, if your software has keyframing, just do the exact same thing I did, but you do it in your editing software. It's like, sometimes I feel like I go, all right, let me show you how to get, to the store down the street. And I drive and I go, you drive down here and you take a right at this stop sign and the store will be on your left. And they go, and a lot of times I'll get people go, cool, now show me how to do that in my car. Like, it doesn't matter what car you're driving. It's the same thing you do. It's the same technique. It's the same operation of things you're going to do. You're going to go here, do that, take a left, take a right, boom. That's all the same kind of things, So I really try to focus on that kind of technique. Super, super important to learn all of those techniques. Yes, absolutely. You're making sense. I'm getting to know the thin line difference between effects, cuts, straight. Yeah, that's super important. Actually, when you start, these really basic things can totally change the way your final project looks without having to think about what Filmora feature can I use to do this? What Movavi feature? What Adobe feature can I do to make this look cool? Making things look cool or interesting or keeping the story moving really starts with understanding that you don't want to just put something in front of a camera and let it run, right? Even on the nightly news, they jump different camera angles, right? And they put things on the storyboard behind them, or they'll switch over to the weatherman who has like graphics, and then they come back over to the co-host. They know you have to keep things moving on something as simple as telling the news, right? Important to learn those kinds of things when you're video editing too, because YouTube is a very fast-paced medium. So you want to learn how to move quickly through things. One of the things I've talked about a lot is the kind of techniques we use here for video editing are things that would never cut the mustard for like cinematic movie making, right? If you did jump cuts in movie making, there are sometimes that works in specific instances, but if there was a scene where you were in a room and people were having a conversation and it kept jump cutting the guy's lines as he was staring at the camera, he said a line and you could see an obvious jump cut and he's now on a different line, and then there's another jump cut and he's saying a third line, which we do all the time on YouTube. If you watch that in a movie, you'd be like, what is this? Was that a glitch? It was like Captain America was talking, all of a sudden it glitched and it's like it jumped ahead. Like, what was that? So those learning the right way to make content for the platform it's going to be put on, super important. And a lot of the things that I teach are really based around either social media posts, or if you're going to be building a YouTube channel, most of all, some kind of a video platform where you're trying to get people to watch your content, engage with them, and bring them value. So, I know I'm talking a lot today. I apologize. I'm trying to get through all of this. So listen, we're going to move ahead. We're going to move ahead here. There's a couple more things that happened here. There's two more. Let me see if you can spot them, okay? Let me put that up full screen. Let me go full screen here. So then I did this. I showed my hoodie. Pretty simple. Okay, this is the next one. Tell me what you see. Tell me in the chat, what did I do here at this portion? Can you tell me what that was? Take your guess in the chat. Tell me what you're seeing on screen there, okay? There was some footage. There was something I put in between. There was a little trick I did here. Tell me what you saw, all right? What's going on? Architectural Sheet Metal, good to see you. Good to see you too, Freaky Hustle. What are we seeing? Boom, right here. Forbes TV gets it. Boom, it is a dissolve. Boom. Doug Hewson right there. Dissolve, right? Cheatin' Timande says fade. It's not a fade. A fade is when you go from something to nothing, or from nothing to something. That's a dissolve. And this is where a jump. What do we have here? Dissolve jump. Did it jump? Hold on a second. I don't know if it jumped or if it was a standard. No, it went from, well, you know what? I could call that a jump. I would call it, because it was filmed continuously. So I would say you could call that a jump. I would absolutely give you credit for that one, Alton, because I did. But all of this blur, as we covered before, was just me putting the mug up so I could get it to focus on the mug. And then as I pulled the mug back, it made the camera take a second to catch up and then focus on me. So there's no special edit there. And you can tell it's a dissolve because when you go here, you can still see my hands up, right? You can still see my hands in the shot on the lower left. You can see one hand down here and my other hand inside of my hand, and you can see the mug. So simple dissolve between two pieces of footage. And I had people guess like it was a mug out transition. It was a dissolve. The camera did all of the focus stuff, Charles. So that wasn't any specific transition I did. Again, jump cut into close up, blur, cup out. Yeah, I mean, you're seeing the elements of it, Crowbar, but the reality is if I told you to go make this, the reason I'm being really specific here is if I said to any one of you guys, go rep, and we might do this in the future. One of the things I'd like to do as a challenge is to make a video and then have you guys try to recreate it. And then whoever can recreate it the best, we'll do some kind of giveaway with it and see who can like recreate something that I made. And I might even give you the footage to do it. Like, all right, here's the footage, and put it together. But I'd rather see you do it yourself, film it yourself, because a lot of things I do in camera. But the difference is I want you guys to be able to see something and go, I know exactly what that was. It was just a simple dissolve between two pieces of footage. One where he was holding a shirt, and the next one he had his mug against the camera and pulled it back. That's just standard footage that we did either call it a standard or a jump. It was later on in the same thing that I filmed. And he just put a dissolve between them. So those simple, knowing what they are helps you recreate things that you see. Like if you go right here, I want to do something in my footage. I'd like it to do that thing I saw you do, Daniel, or something I saw in a movie or something I saw in a commercial. Being able to stop and look and go, what's happening there? What's going on? All right. Oh, okay. I can see what's happening. A lot of times I'll slow things down for that reason. If it's something like if it's a YouTube video, I'll slow it down and go, what just happened? All right, see, I'm just fading out there. And it's fading into another thing. So that's a dissolve. And he just pulled the cup back and the camera was originally focused on the mug. And when he pulled it back, it just took it a second for the camera to refocus on him. And that's what happened. So when you see those things, you go, I know what this was. I know exactly what that was. Dissolve jump cup. Eliza, that's exactly true. If that was a guess that you had put, because I did say earlier, for anyone coming a little later on, I put this video up, but the day before in my community tab, I had run a contest saying, listen, the video's going to go up, and I want you guys to tell me how many cuts, I'm going to have a lesson about cuts and transitions, how to use them and take your footage to the next level, how to think about them and recognize them. And I want you guys to tell me how many there were, what they are, and where they happened in there. So anybody who saw my community tab post was entered into the contest. Anybody who, if you noticed on that video, there was some people making comments that were like, why is this person like listing the cuts and edits that are going on in this video? That's why. And I do these things quite frequently. A lot of times on Twitter, I'll do stuff. On my community tab, I'll do stuff. Because the people who are most engaged in my community are the ones that, I feel like they really help. Everybody who watches the videos help support this channel. But the people who come back time after time and engage in my community tab and really become part of this community, I always want to try to give back whatever I can. So a lot of times you'll see me just running contests on the community tab that I don't advertise in the videos. It's like, if you're paying attention, they're there. I did one on stories once. I put up a story where I had people send in videos of themselves saying, stick around, I'll show you how. And if you send in one that I liked, I put it in my video. So instead of me saying it, there were some of the people from the community were in my video saying, stick around, I'll show you how. And a lot of people were like, how did he get in there? How did that guy get in there? And it was just that same thing. I like highlighting you guys. I like drawing attention to the things you do. So anytime I can do things like this, it lets me put names on screen, lets me talk about, feature someone who's really way ahead of the game. So there's a whole idea of really trying to build this community in a way that it's just bigger than what I've done before. I mean, it's simple to show you how to do things, but I like to be more interactive with you. I wish community tab posts came up in the subscription feed as well. I wish they did too. They come up as notifications. So if you miss the notification, it can be tricky. And they do get recommended sometimes later on. It's just totally random. You have to pay attention to them. It's just one of those things that sometimes I'll see it pop up as a notification, and they are tricky. I wish they were a little bit better about it too, Beanie. Okay, so now listen. So we have that dissolve. Let me find this. Okay, we have one final cut and or transition. Okay, and let me see if you guys can find it here. Hold on a second. Let me pull this one up. Let me share the screen. This is the very last one. This is number 19. Okay, as I was here, I dissolved into this. I showed the stickers that you can now get done. You can make any type of sticker you want for using Spreadshop. And then I did this at the end. What's happening here? What do you guys see? Tell me what you see. Tell me in the chat what you just saw. Throw them in there. Tell me what that was. It's a very common technique. We've talked about this already several times. So tell me what you saw. All right. Harold, am I using StreamYard today? I am using StreamYard. StreamYard is one of the co-sponsors of all of the live streams I do here on the channel. If you haven't tried StreamYard, I've got links down in the description below where you can set up a free StreamYard account and start live streaming today the exact same way I am, with the same kind of functionality. I use the pro level, which gives me a few more branding features, like I can put this kind of my own stuff up top and things like that. But all of the basic things that you're seeing here, StreamYard makes live streaming very simple. Okay. Fade. I see fade. I see fade in slow. I see, Doug Houston has it. I see fade, cut and fade. This is one of those things that it gets tricky, right? Gets tricky. Cheaton said fade out. Peaches said dissolve. You got it, Peaches. You get it right on top. Corona, dissolve. Here's why this is a dissolve, because there's two elements. One element was, let me see if I can find this. One element over here was of me holding the sticker, and the next element was the Spreadshop piece of footage. It was just I dissolved into an image. I went from a piece of footage to an image. But going from one thing to another, this isn't a fade out. This is actually a dissolve from one thing to another. Now, if I had made Spreadshop go from here to just black, that would have been a fade out. But this was actually a dissolve, because you can see both elements on screen. See, dissolve is you can still see my goofy face. Man, I'm goofy. And you can see the Spreadshop logo coming in as I go out. And that's the real definition of a dissolve. It's dissolving from one thing to another thing. Super. And did you see how many times I've used that in this particular edit? I used it effectively a bunch of different ways where it was like bam, boom, quick, in, out. And it really is, standard cuts. Sometimes it's just a smooth way to take the harshness out of going from one thing right into another. A quick dissolve makes that look really smooth. And you can see the way I did this was I actually layered it here. If you can, this is how sometimes I'm always thinking. I had the Spreadshop logo, and I needed some black underneath it because it wasn't complete. That was a PNG. So I dissolved into it. Even though I used the dissolve in the tracks above, I put the logo over a standard black and then put that on top of the piece of footage that was running. And these are two dissolve effects. I just made the black and the Spreadshop logo dissolve in at the exact same time. So that dissolve in allows the other one it allows it to overlay. That's another way that you can do a dissolve. If you put something into a track above and lay a dissolve in like that, that allows that footage to still show what's happening in the track below it while the track above it is visible. So there's different ways. A dissolve is not always two pieces of footage that are side by side like here. See, this is side by side, and I've got that. Let me put that bigger so you can see it. This is side by side where I put the dissolve in between, but the same effect can be created by taking another thing and putting into a track above and then just putting that dissolve onto the one above. So it's dissolving in and it forces the dissolve out of the track below it. Boom. Simple. That's what it was. That's what it was. So this was really straightforward kind of editing outside of the Orb Twist that I used and I kind of gave away. I didn't do anything that was too crazy, that was too nuts. It was a lot of simple stuff. Overlapping image and footage, cool. Yeah, you know why I do that? I found out in Filmora sometimes what happens is if I want to crossfade the exact same piece of footage into itself, like maybe I want to color correct, like if I want the colors to change, like to go from black and white into color, I found that the new Filmora, you can't just split the footage and put a dissolve in between them. It used to be able to, now it won't let you. I found this out in my last live stream. You have to cut the footage, put it up top, stretch it out a little, and then dissolve into itself. So it's kind of a tricky technique. I actually showed how to do that in the last one. But yeah, that's simple. Another way to think about a dissolve. Just dissolving into something forces the dissolve out of anything below it in your timeline. Kind of cool, right? All right, now listen. There were a bunch of people that that got into this contest. And I went through and I pushed hardcore to see, all right, who, I really put everybody through the paces. I got a shout out to Crowbar, who is in the chat today. Crowbar, you did a great job. You came up with 14 correct answers out of the 19. So, that was a solid run. There was only, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people who came into the final running out of all the people who guessed. There's a channel, Todor Dojo, D-O-G-O, who was able to get also, who got 13 out of the 19. Now the other people all got 14, and that was Success is the Goal, got 14 of them right. That was killer. Great job there, pal. Netco Nesto also got 14 right, so congrats to you. You really did great. Sujay Sam got 14 of them right. And what was funny was different people got different ones right. It was like someone get this one right, but not get the other one. So it was really, really impressive to see how some people really caught some of them and not the others. And Dom AZ got 14 of them right. So Dom, great job working on this one. But we had one final winner that really crushed it. And that was Cooper Music Page. I don't know if Cooper Music Page is here today. If you're not, I'll make sure I find you. But Cooper Music Page got 15 out of the possible 19, and was even mentioning things like, yeah, I saw you panned that. Like when the cup went to the side, that was a pan. It's just, he just like threw in all the extra things too, like you did a pan there. And he was throwing in all the extra stuff. So Cooper Music Page, fantastic job with this. I'm going to do more of these in the future because we have such great sponsors who help us do these kind of things where we'll do some challenges. I hope this was helpful to you guys. We'll figure out some new different types of challenges that we can do moving forward. But Cooper Music Page, get in touch with me. I will get in touch with you. There's $100 cash that I'm going to send out for you for getting all, as many right as you could. 15 out of 19. These were tough. This was a fast moving edit. So anything you've learned here today, go on, try them in your own footage. Get out there and try to apply some of these things. Watch this in the replay. Take a look at some of the things you saw happen and see how you can work those into your next edit to make the pacing move quickly and have a smooth flow so that you're not sitting too long in one place and you're trimming the fat out of your edits so that the content you put up really gets right to the meat and potatoes of all of it. All right. So listen, thanks for hanging out with me today. We'll do this again in the future. Congrats to every runner-up and congrats to the winner out there, Cooper Music Page. We'll do this again soon. And you guys, enjoy your day. I'll talk to you soon.